Hi, welcome back to part 3 of this series of playing live with Ableton Live. So, first two videos we've got all the talking through all the connections and the hardware and so on. So we're now going to start to get down and start to actually prepare some tracks to play live. What I plan to do over the course of the next few videos is start completely from scratch. We're going to do one track at a time and then build those up into one project within Ableton. So I'm assuming you've got a load of tracks finished and completed, and you're thinking, okay, how the hell do I get those tracks together on one project so I can play them live without having to load tracks in between songs, we can have a nice smooth live performance? Well, I'm going to show you how I do it. So I'm not going to do the tracks in any particular order. I'm going to start with this track, which is called Hypnotic. I produce tracks under the name Rezzonator. It's basically electronic music in any style. This one's a bit of an electro house, club banger kind of track. I do a lot of ambient, chill out stuff, down tempo stuff, drum and bass. Basically anything that I feel like writing at the time. So this is the track I'm going to start with. This one is due for release on 30th of March on a Beatport exclusive release through my label Rezzelectro Records. I'll put a load of links in the description to the label and Rezzonator and release dates and so on. And then it's got its full digital release on 13th of April. I would love it if you bought the track. You can actually get it as a free download as well. I'll put some links to that and share it around the world. You know, it's nice to make a few quid from selling a few tracks, but you know, you don't make much money these days from selling music. At the end of the day, I write music because I want people to hear it. So if you like it, download it for free, share it around. If you're feeling generous, buy it for 69p or whatever it is, and help keep me going. Anyway, there's the shameless advertising out the way. Let's get down to this track. So, first thing you want to do for your tracks is decide which section of the track you want to play live. I am a drummer by profession. I'm no keyboard player or pianist or whatever, but some of the parts I do like to sort of play the lead line on a keyboard. So, I have decided on this track I'm going to be playing this lead line, which I'm going to play on the Novation launch key. So this lead line is kind of like a sort of a nice plinky plonky lead line. Let's give you just a quick play of a few bits of the track so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so you can see, I mean, throughout the track, this lead line is doing quite a lot of work. So I like to keep busy during the performance. I don't want to be standing around just like hitting the keyboard once every 30 seconds or so on, standing there feeling awkward. So this is going to give me a lot to do and a lot to play during the track. It's also good because it gives me a bit of an intro bit here to make sure everything's set up okay. And it gives me a nice long outro here to get me prepared for the next track, whatever's going to come next. So a couple of bits just to think about on this lead line. There is a filter when it comes in. If I just solo that out, okay, the lead line sort of gradually filters in. Okay, and we have the same thing here as we go into this middle section, so I'm going to need to give some thought as to how I'm going to play that live. That's going to basically mean assigning a filter to a hardware controller, so as I'm playing that I can gradually open up that filter. So I will deal with that later on. So first thing then we need to do is basically get our backing track exported without this lead line in it, because obviously we don't want to be playing over the top of that lead line if we're already playing that. So, the easiest way to do that, dead simple, we're just going to export this track with that one turned off. So we will have a backing track minus that lead line. Now, the way I tend to work is this is my final mix of this song, and actually my final master as well. I've got some mastering plugins on my master channel. This is generally the EQ I put on all my masters. Works very nicely as a master EQ, so feel free to copy that, and it cuts out any bottom end, you know, the really low stuff that you don't want. Takes out any boominess in the middle, gives it a little boost at the high end as well. I then have a compressor. I'm not doing a massive amount of work, but the glue compressor just to kind of squeeze everything together. I use this Waves Center, which is great for basically getting your bass down the center. It makes the bass mono in effect, which is what you want if you're playing tracks in a club. You don't want stereo bass, because as soon as you play stereo bass in a club, all the bass disappears, because a lot of clubs have mono systems. So you want to make sure your bass is down the center. Don't pan them left and right. It keeps that nice and focused. I then have a couple of limiters just to get the volume up. I've got the L2 Ultra Maximizer first in the chain, and then I have the L1 just taking it up a little bit higher. I like to use two limiters doing kind of half the amount of work each, rather than really pushing one limiter, because you can run into problems with that. So yeah, this is my final mix and my final master. Now I know you shouldn't do it that way, and really you should send your tracks off to be mastered, but at the end of the day, I have sent tracks off to be mastered in the past, and I found I can get equally as good results just using the plugins and mastering it myself, unless you want to spend a lot of money, which I don't at this stage. So this is my final mastered version. The reason I'm talking about mastering now is because it's going to affect how you export this track. This is my final, like I say, my final mix and master. So I want to export it without the lead line. So I've turned that off. I'm going to go Control A just to highlight everything, and we're going to export it. Now, because this is my final master, I am going to dither it when I export it. I always just tend to use this setting. I don't know why, it's just the one I always use, and it seems to sound okay. Dithering is basically the final process you do on your final print of the track. You don't want to dither more than once. If you're sending your track off to be mastered, you would want to export it without the dithering on, because the mastering place will apply dithering to it. So I'd say if you're going to do that and then send these off to get mastered, don't have dithering on at the moment. I'm going to dither it because this is my final version that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to hit export. I will save it somewhere. You save it obviously wherever you want. I'm going to save it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Hypnotic. Actually, no, let's call it Hypnotic Live Backing. And we're going to export it as a WAV file, and we will let Ableton do its thing. Obviously, if you're sending your track away for mastering, what you would want to do is at that stage is decide which bit of the track you're going to play live. So you could then ask them to give you two versions of the master. Obviously the full track that is going to be released, or you're going to do whatever with it, and then the full master track minus, for example, on this one, minus the lead line. And then you've got your tracks ready and mastered ready for playing out live. So just going to let this export, and then I will come back to you in a few minutes when this is finished, because you don't want to watch this percentage bar going up for the next 5 minutes. So I will see you in a second. Okay, so Ableton has done its thing. It's exported the track for us. We've now got here our WAV file for our live backing. So that's the backing done. For this track, I'm just having one single backing track with everything just squished together in that one track. You can do separate tracks if you want to have a bit more control over the volume levels live. So for example, you might export just all the drums, or the lead, or the bass, or the effect, and any vocals and so on, and have perhaps 3 or 4 channels. And I will probably try and do that with one of the tracks, so you can see how I do that. I did always used to do that in the past, and then I found there was no point doing that. Everything's already mixed, all the levels should all be okay anyway. And so I find it just a little bit neater and easier just to do it with a single track, but you can do it that other way. And as I say, I'll go through one track and show you how I do that, because there's one track I will do where I will launch just all the separate clips live. So we've got our backing track done. Next thing we've got to do is we need to get the basically what we're going to play, the sound that is creating this lead line here. We need to get that out so we can then assign that to whatever keyboard or hardware controller we're going to play. So creating this lead sound is basically it's an audio sample I've got in Simpler, or is it Sampler? I'm not sure, one of the two, with some reverb after it and a delay. Then there's some EQ applied to it and 2 filters. So all of these are put together in a rack. They're grouped together. So if you're not sure how to do that, let's just group these. For example, you would highlight them all. If you hold down Shift, it's going to keep them all there. Right click, and you would group them together. Click Group. All of these are now together in this one kind of rack. So you can close them down and so on, turn the whole thing on and off. I'm just going to do Control Z just to undo that, because I don't want those grouped for now. But it means you can kind of drag everything around in one go. So our group over here, which is this one, Scatter Lead it's called, because I've used this sound in another song as well. Okay, all of this here. So we're going to want all of that rack to be able to go into our new live set. So what I would do, easiest way is, I'm just going to delete some of these because I've already got this from when I did it before. Let's get rid of that. Okay, very, very simple. I go to my user library and I'm just going to click on it, drag it in there. Okay, and then we're going to rename it. Hypnotic. Ooh, it's already said lead. Hypnotic lead. So I know that that is my lead sound for the track. Hypnotic. Okay, and it's appeared in there. So that's all we need to do with the original file we've got here. So what we're now going to do then is we're going to start. Don't save the changes. Okay, we're going to get a new blank project, and this is going to be our live set. So let's get rid of some of these MIDI channels because I don't need those. I'm going to start off with a single audio channel. Okay, like that. So we're going to be working in this view most of the time, and we will give it a name, and we will save it as live set for now. So first thing we need to do then is bring in our backing track, which is this here. So I'm just going to grab that, drag it in, let it do its thing, and I am going to warp all the tracks. That way I can change the tempos if necessary, and everything keeps nice and in time. So I know this is a single, this is the same speed all the way through, so I'm going to warp it from there straight. I think the original track was about 128 BPM, so we'll stick it in at 128 and we should have a nicely warped track. Okay. Lovely. So that's all nice and warped. Everything is all in time. So that's got our backing track in there. So we can hear we're going to have some gaps where the lead line is now missing. Okay, so we've now got our nice spaces ready for our lead line. So we need to bring in then to our set our lead. So remember that is here, that one we dragged out earlier. So if I just drag that across here, it'll create a new MIDI track for me. And you can see we've got everything that was in that rack from before. Now at the moment I'm just going to be playing this off the computer keyboard. Okay, so I'm just playing that off the computer keyboard. We can hear we've got that sound. Now, as it is, it's pretty straightforward. As long as I've got this highlighted, I would then there's no other tracks in here, so it's pretty straightforward. And what I would do is I would have my MIDI ins from the launch key, and then as this is the only thing that's in this track, my launch key is going to play this sound, which is nice and simple. Okay. What we would need to do though is when we get new tracks in, we're going to have to start working with dummy clips and chain selectors, but I will cover that in the next video. All I would basically do then to, if you remember, we've got that filter that we need to bring in and out when the lead line comes in, which is this one here. No, it's not, sorry. It's this one. Okay, because I start with it low and I kind of gradually open up the filter. What I've done is, okay, because when you group a track, we get these macros here. So I've assigned that frequency there to macro 1. Okay, let's just unmap that for now. So I'll map that to macro 1. So this macro is now controlling this. If I just drag this down here so you can see it, and I'll put it back in a second because it needs to be in that chain. But you can see this is now controlling, just moving that with the mouse, is now controlling that filter. So if I play that sound, okay, drag the filter up and down, that means I can now open and close that filter with that macro. All I would then do is when the launch key is connected up, I would click MIDI, I would click on that, and I would turn whichever dial I want to control that filter with in my case the launch key, on your case it could be any MIDI controller. That would then always be assigned to that, and then when you're playing that lead part live, you can open and close the filter as necessary. I'm just going to do Control Z just to get that filter back where it was, which is back over there. Okay, and basically there we have our first track prepared and ready to play live. So with this one I might actually launch it as a scene. What I would probably do is do this anyway. I'd rename it here. Now a little tip here is if you're launching scenes, you can change the BPM of the track instantly if you put it in the beginning. So I know this song is 128 beats per minute, so I would have 128 BPM and I would call it Hypnotic, because that's what it's called. Okay, so if for example my tempo up here from the previous track was say 120, if I launch the scene now, okay, you can see the tempo jumps straight away to 128. That's launched that scene. That sound is going to play on my launch key, so I would have the MIDIs set up in here, and we're good to go. We can perform that track, and everything is all done nice and ready. Now that's the simplest one, is the first track. It gets a little bit more complicated, as I said before, when we get to the second track, because we need to start assigning some dummy MIDI clips and chain selectors, and I will cover that in the next video. I will also try and do an accompanying video of this, of me performing this track live, so you can see me playing it on the launch key and using the dial for the filter and so on. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, then please feel free to message me, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.